I went from one shoe factory town to another shoe factory in Estonia to shoot Estonian Fashion Festival. And I'll be honest, I had a great time. But I'm going to talk to you about, like, it's 3 different days, 3 very different runways, and how I shoot them and how I go about it. Because I feel like we're used to these runways that are straight up and down. And the first 2 were not like that. But also, if it's straight up and down, a lot of people don't understand the etiquette. So these are free videos. So if you haven't already thought about it, subscribe now, because they are going to come out in order. So you can watch and see the behind the scenes footage, and I'll teach you how to tell you how I shot it, and also maybe you'll pick up some tips for you. I think fashion photography when it comes to runway is often poo-pooed as really easy. It is not easy. Phil, who was coming from also in Estonia, who was coming over, he's a wildlife photographer, and he decided to do a skill swap with me, and he came with me, and if you listen to the podcast, the Loud Lens, which is actually a nice little sign just there for it, but I'll put the playlist up here. You can hear how he said he found it challenging. It is not just and done. Okay, there is so much involved. For a start, showing up at this factory and to realize it wasn't a straight up and down runway. Also that we had to find spots, and there was restrictions on where we could. Now we could have gone and stood with the other photographer that was there, but that meant we'd all have the same shots as him. And for me, I don't think that's a good thing for fashion. So, and particularly if you want to show your runway, if you just get loads of the same shots. So I said, is it possible to find somewhere else? And they're like, yeah, cool, as long as you can sit down and you're not in the way of anyone who's sitting watching the show. Which meant I was sort of perched in this tiny little cubby of a a windowsill amongst some plants. And I was shooting between 2 people's heads. One of them was a designer for the jewelry on one of the collections. So it was fun. It was really nice. She was very happy to have me there, and we chatted a bit. But because it was such a narrow runway, there were people sat with their feet out. Now, etiquette normally means that you tuck your feet under the chair or you sit with both feet on the ground, but people were crossing their legs. Some guy had his feet straight out in front of them, so the models had to step over him. It's one of those things that happens. And in my previous experience at places like in London, they get someone to go down and tell them all how to sit if they don't. But it didn't happen here, and you just roll with it. I think different countries have different rules and different standards of expectation, and you should never go in thinking this is the only way and this is how it should be done. Yes, I think sometimes it does make it more helpful, but equally I love a challenge. So what's the problem? Lenses of choice I took with me, well, should I say in my kit bag, the first most important thing was the lens and the batteries. You need so many batteries. I don't care what anyone says. I just take 2. I took 4, right? I just took 4. I don't often take a second body if I've got, like, I know, well, I did this time because I had a backpack, but I know people only take 1 body. I would always suggest, if you can, bring a second body, because you never know if something goes wrong with your first and then you're stuffed. But I had the 70 to 200 with me, f2.8. It's right. Yes, I did. I had the 24 to 70 and a 40mm, because sometimes I'm asked to shoot backstage and I like the diversity of those 2 lenses. The 70-200 was what I used primarily for the runway, because it gives me that separation, but it also means I can zoom in, zoom out to get the shots that I needed. Although there was a set, I watched the rehearsals, which is the top tip if you're going to go watch some rehearsals. Although there was like a set pattern, I thought, of how people walk, every single collection walked a different way. Some people were performing, some people were running around, some people were doing their thing, and some collections, like, you were struggling to get all of them, and that's something you have to pay off. Like, I can't get every single shot, and that makes you feel bad, but that's just because of how it was set up. Typically they want clear backgrounds, but obviously if they've gone to the expense, the drama of hiring this factory, you're going to have to show some of it in. And there were literally people working, making shoes right up until rehearsals were happening. In fact, during rehearsals, when I went upstairs, there were still people working and walking around to speak to their bosses and stuff. So, you know, it was a little bit chaotic at times, but it was fun. I'd come all the way from the UK. I was very excited for this. In my bag, I had those lenses. I had spare SD cards. I had my phone, so I could, because there was no internet, despite it's only being very well connected. Where we were did not have any internet open for us to use. So I used my phone to hotspot. I had my laptop and my charger in there, and I was ready to go. But I did not take a tripod, which I know a lot of people are like, oh, did you take a tripod? No, I did not take a tripod. I only took my monopod, my Monfrotto monopod, and I will put the link below so you can grab yourself one. The reason why I love this one is it's sturdy, easily adjustable. I'm not twisting anything. I'm popping open the latch, sliding. I'm done. Like, I hate the twisty ones. I'm done. I never seem to twist them tight enough. They slowly sink down. Also, it's got a really good foot plate, which means on the bottom, so it means I'm not sliding around so much. It's really lightweight, which is perfect for travel photography, and it's never let me down yet, she says. And you know what? I work hard on it. At one point I was laughing on day 3, saying I look like like Gandalf because I was like holding on to it with my camera, like, you shall not pass, you know. But it goes really high. I can shoot at my height. I'm 5'7". I think it works out 170 centimeters, and I can still go higher than me. So I can shoot at eye level height and higher. Don't. I love it. I love it. It means I haven't always got the retail space to set up a tripod. And I think people need to realize that you can't always have a tripod with you. I got ready to shoot. I knew that I had to make sure that typically when you shoot, you're getting the front, at least the first foot flat on the ground. It's okay if you get a little bit of lift on the second one, but you don't want the lift on the first one, if you get what I mean, because the foot that's right at the front, because it just looks unsightly. No one sees see the soles of the shoe. And you do very little editing, like skin retouch, and it just has to go out as it is. Because the light kept changing, we had these kind of moody shots from me because we had the massive windows from the factory that was letting a lot of light in. Despite the fact it was 6 p.m. when the fashion show happened, the sun wasn't setting till much later in Estonia and actually was going across those windows. It was almost like midday sun at sometimes. You also had the fluorescent downlighting that was from the factory, and then the fashion show had also installed these sort of like strobe tube lighting in different colors. So you had all this, and none of them were like super strong. So you kind of had to balance it off with yourself. I really enjoy a challenge, and I thought this was really good. People were walking around in different directions. There was a lot more freedom, it felt, than some of the traditional straight up and down runways, which we will get onto. So yes, this was fun. I will say it was a bit chaotic at times, but I also just had a great time. It was a nice one to ease in. Remember, this was our opening night, so it really had to set a precedent. Now, there is, if you're not maybe into doing the runway shoots, you can also do what we call the street shoots, or the street style, or basically people will go outside a fashion show and photograph what people are wearing who are attending. It's a very popular thing. You might see this quite often in London Fashion Week particularly, and it's a really popular thing to people to do, and I really love it. It's very paparazzi kind of thing, and it's street style, and I think it's beautiful. And then I'm inside shooting this bit. There is a little bit of etiquette that goes on when you're shooting runway, but not everybody adheres to it. One of the things is don't use flash, and there was a photographer using flash. She was on a different assignment, so you kind of had to just forgo that. Did it ruin some of my shots? Occasionally it made a difference in the lighting. I wouldn't say it ruined them though. I can roll with this. She wasn't next to me, and I know some people were getting a bit like about it, but you know what? The only thing I found a little bit odd was that some of the people who were attending like got up, and like at one point a girl was walking down the catwalk to model, and they just sort of pushed past her. I was a bit like, oh, that, but I don't know if people, they might be their first runway show, they're not sure how it works, or maybe it's just different places. But yeah, so that was runway number 1. Okay, so you will have seen here images that I was showing, so you can see what I'm talking about. But don't forget to subscribe, and I will get on to runway 2, which was again completely different, and it was a lot more challenges. But that was at the Estonian National Museum. So this is Estonian Fashion Festival day 1 done.